with Sam. The battle's over. The A-team has not been successful as far as the result is concerned. Obviously disappointing, Sam, but what next?
Well, you said that the battle was over. I think it's appropriate that the word battle is used rather than war, because the war continues. What's next is, well, the states are going to have to, the PPC is going to bring forward the legislation that the states will need to debate to implement option B, and that's where the next battle in this war starts, because as even Senator Sir Philip Balash has acknowledged, option B was less fair than what we currently have now. So if the states try and pass...
I'm referring to the actual thing as an opinion poll, which is rather unusual language for him, I thought.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's always made the argument that if the result is resounding, then the states can't possibly ignore it, which is a good point, and I agree with that, but the result hasn't been resounding whatsoever. St Helier only had 16% turnout. St Helier is the biggest part of this island, one of the most important parts of this island. If the turnout in St Helier is so low, then the legitimacy of the whole thing is totally
Can the
undermined.
states walk away from it? This is the trouble, isn't it? I mean, they've got a result there now.
I think they can. I think they can walk away from it. There are so many moral arguments behind this. Because option B is less democratic than what we have now, there are some states members who morally cannot justify voting for it. And you have to sympathise with them. People like Ian Le Marquand. Ian Le Marquand would have voted for option A if option A had won, but he can't vote for option B because it's less fair. He may not like option A, but at least he could say it's fairer than what we have now, so he could have backed it, but he can't option B, and there's a few other states members that will think the same.
Well, there were quite strong divisions at ministerial level, weren't there? So it's, I mean, in any other government it would be a split cabinet. It would actually be a collapsed government in any other situation, wouldn't it?
No, not necessarily actually, because remember the United Kingdom had a referendum on swapping to the alternative vote system, which I voted for alternative vote because I live in the UK for university time, and the Labour Party had a free vote policy. I can't remember what the other two parties were, but the Lib Dems obviously were strongly in favour of it, and most Conservatives were against it, and they're in a government together. So I think electoral systems are not necessarily bound by collective responsibility. So I don't think that will cause any friction in the government, to be perfectly honest.
Well, it won't cause any friction in this government because they seem to sail on regardless. Ministers can come and go, but it doesn't affect them, does it really?
Yeah, exactly. And ministers will continue to come and go, and my dream for Jersey is one day we'll have a set of ministers that just are of a democratic frame of mind. I think the island needs to be really concerned at the fact that our chief minister was backing a system that's less democratic than what we have now. I personally cannot understand how the head of the government of this island, our prime minister essentially, was backing something that was acknowledged to be undemocratic. Even David Cameron in the UK wouldn't do such a thing.
Well, when the chief minister came before the electoral commission, he was visibly ill-prepared in his...
Yeah, absolutely.
His agenda was most confused.
Yeah, I did a blog on it at the time, and he was so incoherent, his points didn't connect properly, he was so filled with contradictions in the argument he was making. This is a point I quite want to make. There is such a thing, I believe, as a democratic tradition. People, whatever part of the political spectrum they're on, whether they're a liberal, a socialist or a conservative, there is a tradition of democracy, just understanding what democracy is about, and it just didn't compute with him. The way he was talking, he just didn't seem to understand what democracy is. Democracy is about people choosing their government and deciding how they're run, and he just didn't understand it.
Well, he was visibly ill-prepared and dragged in at the last minute. It was a very strange occurrence. There's been a lot of discussion through this campaign about possible going after Strasbourg or Privy Council about the result. This mishmash result, as it happened, has rather not helped the cause of democracy, hasn't it? I mean, it certainly hasn't helped the message that's going out that we know how to run things.
Yeah. I was on the radio earlier, and the point I made was that for decades, starting in the late 1800s, after the franchise had been extended to men of a certain age that owned a certain amount of property, the call then began for women to have the vote, because women didn't have equal rights to men. And the struggle for equality between men and women at the ballot box ended only in 1928, after decades of women throwing bricks through the windows of Downing Street. Emily Davidson jumped under the King's horse and killed herself for the pursuit of equal votes for women. This is something that carries on and will never end. If people don't have an equal vote, the struggle will always continue, because a system that's built on unfairness is totally unsustainable. So whatever the result of the referendum today in Jersey, until people have an equal vote, the struggle will continue. It's the same everywhere. It was the same in Northern Ireland when the constituencies were gerrymandered. It was the same in South Africa when black people weren't allowed to vote. Equal votes will win the day. It's just a case of when, not if, and it will be the same in Jersey.
The union came out late in the day with engaged support, but there's obviously the A team will now presumably disappear as such, because its task is finished, it's done what it can do.
Yep.
But the desperate need for an organised group, a party,
Yep.
There's a nucleus here with the A team. Can it be prolonged, expanded, made into a proper political party?
Before the A team, we had Reform Jersey, which was a group I set up to sort of engage with the Electoral Commission to make sure that the discussion was kept on the democracy lines that it should be. Reform Jersey never officially disbanded, but we sort of merged with the A team for this referendum campaign. I would like to bring back Reform Jersey for the next campaigns. The great thing about the name Reform Jersey is it can apply to virtually anything. Reform Jersey was a group of people that were like-minded, that were Democrats first and foremost. I think we were mostly centre-left, but we were Democrats first and foremost. This is something I think Reform Jersey should pursue, and it should be something that should be a popular thing, because equal votes is something everybody can relate to.
By some extraordinary fluke, we happen to have an official Jersey Reform Day coming up in September, which might be the ideal opportunity to bring like-minded people together to think about what happened in the distant past, not this century, previous centuries, and what's been happening for centuries in Jersey about this effort to try and get reform.
Absolutely. I've actually, when I've been going around the parishes doing my speeches for the various debates that have gone on, I've sort of ended my speech by saying that the quest for democracy and fairness in Jersey didn't begin with Clothier, it didn't begin with the 1948 reforms, or even the 1880s when the residents of St Helier petitioned Queen Victoria. This struggle for a transformation in Jersey to be a fully fair and democratic society began in the Royal Square on the 28th of September 1769, and what they were suggesting at the time was radical, but now is common sense, and we still don't have a lot of the things that they wanted, this equality and a fair system. It was just a couple of months ago I got given a copy of Jersey Looks Forward by Norman Le Roc, and I looked at, they had a manifesto they published that had a bunch of, it was like a 10-point plan or something for Jersey, and I looked at it and think, wow, in 1948 this was radical, now it's common sense, and still some of the things in that 10-point plan haven't been implemented in Jersey yet. And I just think that there are various groups throughout Jersey history that have been so ahead of their time. Tom Grishy was one of them, and various other people. So this is something that Jersey will one day have, one way or another, as long as the people of Jersey are willing to stand up for their democratic rights and say we want a fair democracy.
We shall see you in September.
Excellent.
Cheers.